Hey guys, good evening. I hope I'm pretty much audible. So just a quick hi or hello in the chat will be really good, guys. So okay, Ali is here. So Ali, good evening. Thank you for joining us. And I hope I'm pretty much audible. So just a quick update if I'm audible. So just a hi or hello would be really good in the chat, guys. Great. So let's get started. So today we are into our second lecture for the series, the playlist. So introduction to our the data types in Python. That's what we're going to be discussing. So we're going to be closing that what we started yesterday. But the playlist name is data analysis in 3 weeks, right? So we'll try to do the data analysis understanding in 3 weeks. We'll try to cover some really important topics in data analysis. Python is going to be the basic of everything. So we need Python to do all of our day-to-day job in data analysis, right? So that's what we'll be discussing in our in our discussion. Great. So thank you, Ali, for confirming. Great. So we are pretty much live, guys. So we have the live chat also. So I'm monitoring the chat. If anybody is having any concerns, any doubts during the course of our discussion, so do put up your question in the chat, guys. So and do ask your friends to join us. So we go live every day 10 p.m. So that's what we do, right? So do ask your friends to join us if they are willing to do data analysis and learn Python or something like that. So that's going to be useful for everybody, right? So do share it with your friends as well. Great. So let's quickly start. I'll just introduce myself and then we'll jump to the content. So as you know, my name is Arpit Jain and I'm a lead data scientist myself. I have been in industry for almost 9 years into multiple domains. So I was with Bank earlier, then I was in cloud domain, then I was with the manufacturing automobile sector. Right now I'm in telecom. So I've seen industry, so I've been into multiple domains doing the data analysis job. So as you know, data analysis or data science is actually valid for all the available industries, right? So data is everywhere. You're working on data, in fact, right? So it's pretty valid to all the industries, and that's what I've been doing for past so many years. Along with that, I'm also a motivational speaker. So I talk to students, I talk to them regarding their job, career, or anything, whatever issues they have. So any concerns, any problem regarding your job or career, or you want to switch to data science, do let me know, guys. So we'll talk about that. So we'll utilize this channel, the live feed, and then we'll talk about that as well. Okay. So do put up your question in the chat. I'm monitoring the chat, guys. Okay. Great. So now, if anybody has any questions from the previous yesterday's discussion, just do let me know. Meanwhile, I'll just pull up the content for today's discussion. So yesterday we were discussing about the basic data types. So we discussed about numeric, we discussed about the sequential data type as well. So in sequential, we covered about strings, the basics of strings, and then we also talked about the basics of lists, right? So any questions, guys? We just covered the basic things only, so we did not go deep. So we did not solve many problems. We just started with the. Anybody has any problem in understanding those concepts, just to let me know, guys. So we'll again take that. Should not be a problem for me. Okay. But anyway, before proceeding covering the remaining topics for the day, I'll anyway give you a brief up. So I'll just give you a quick recap of what we discussed yesterday, and then we can close up the points. Okay, so just let me pull up the slide. Just give me a minute, guys. It's loading up. Right, so let me know if my screen is visible. Guys, is my screen visible by any chance? I don't know what's happening here, guys. Just a minute. Yeah, it should be visible now. Okay. Great. So we were talking about Python data types yesterday. So I'll just give you a quick recap of what we discussed yesterday, and then I'm gonna just switch to our today's content. So we were discussing about the Python data types, right? So we were discussing about numeric, sequential, Boolean, set, and dictionary, right? So we were discussing about these individual topics. So we discussed about numeric yesterday. So numeric, again, three different major subdivisions here. So we have integers, float, and complex numbers. Integers are nothing but my whole numbers, float with the decimal points, and complex where we have the real as well as the imaginary part. So very, very basic concept. So we can define all of these three data types in Python as well. Okay, simple definition is also pretty simple. So we saw that. So we use the function type to actually check the class of my the variable which we have loaded, the numeric class, right? So we loaded with the variable 100, which is a whole number. We saw the class, it shows as int. We saw that yesterday. Likewise for float, the same number, just adding a decimal, even though there's after decimal, even if there's nothing, still I'm giving this as a float data type because it has a decimal pointer, right? It gives you the class as float. Likewise for the complex, we have the real plus the imaginary part defined by j for the imaginary part. And if you see the class, is going to be the complex one, right? Simple as that. Should be clear. Post that, we discussed about sequence data types. So sequence is nothing but where you're going to have the ordered collection of similar or different data types, right? So here we have string, list, and tuple. String we saw like more of a sequence collection of my characters. So character is not a data type in Python. So character could be anything. It could be an alphabet, it could be a numeric, it could be a number, or it could be even a special characters or anything, right? So anything which can be given as under the quotes is going to be called as my character, right? So a character is not a data type. We define a character, right? So it's not an inbuilt data type as such. So string here is going to be the collection of characters, and character is what? Character is nothing but a string of length 1. Okay, so always remember that. So it's also asked quite frequently in the interviews as well. So we saw we can define strings in 3 ways. So we can be either using single quotes, double quotes, or even the triple quotes, right? So that all are equally possible. So now you can see here this. So 1, which is actually a number, I can still define this 1 as my string data type. So you have defined by defining this using the quotes. So I have single quotes, I can use same thing as a double quotes, and in fact I can still use the triple quotes. Still everything, the class of this is still the string. You saw that yesterday, right? So pretty simple. Now again, there are few objectives, there are few ways, few things which you should keep in mind before understanding this and why we do all of this. So here you can see, for example, hello world, right? So hello world is where we're gonna see that we don't have any inbuilt, internal to this string, we don't have any other apostrophes or anything which is like quotes inside my string, right? So I can directly define this under the single quote. I can even write this under double quotes or triple quotes. But look at this. The difference is in this string I have hello, I am an engineer. So between I and am, I have a quote here, right? This is the way we write our more towards my string, right? So here, if I use single quote to enclose this string, right, then in this case the problem is this single quote will also be treated as by outer boundary. So this entire string will not be considered, only till here would be considered, because in this case this is how will be ended, right? You can see this. Now this alone is being considered because I'm opening the string here, and now this is considered as a closing here. So in this type of sentences, I cannot use the single quote. I have to use the double quotes because single quote is already part of my string internally, right? So this is where I have to use a double quote. Likewise, triple quotes, again here, this sentence, hello, I am an engineer and like machines. So machines are under double quotes, right? So I cannot use double quotes now anymore as part of my string, as part of my enclosing quotes, right? So in this case, I have to use triple quotes. So likewise, this is the objective. This is the way we have to identify when to use what. Okay. Hey Utpal, thank you for joining in. I'm good. I hope you are doing great too. Great. So now we just quickly discuss about indexing. So how to get the information, how to access my elements in string. So we saw that as well. So here we talked about the forward indexing. We talked about the backward indexing. So forward starting with 0, backward starting with -1. So we know that. So a of 0 is going to give me the first element of my this string, which is h. And likewise, a of -1 will be give me the first element from the backward side. So that's going to be my o. So if I give a of -1, so here, if I give a of -1, I'll be getting, okay, a is not defined. Just do that. So a is equal to -1, that's going to be my o. So that's how simple, right? So nothing fancy here. That's what we did. Pretty simple. Now we jump towards lists. So list kya hai? List is nothing but an ordered collection of data stored under square brackets, right? So any ordered collection of data which is stored under square bracket is called as list, okay? And this is very useful data type, guys. It's very flexible, and here items are not mandatorily need to be of same data type, okay? Here I can store multiple data types in a single enclosure. So I can have number, I can have string, I can have float, I can have a complex number, I can have even a list within this, I can have even a dictionary within the list, right? So all of this would be my different data types within a single list, okay? It's totally possible. And how we initiate the list? So to initiate a blank list, I can just simply call a enclosure of my square brackets. That's going to initiate a blank list here. You can see this. So that's how, if I have just initiated a blank list, this is how this has been initiated here. And now likewise, I can also initiate a list with one character. So now what I'm doing is I'm initiating a list with a string, a single element, which is GeeksforGeeks, right? So enclosed under my strings here. So this entire element will be considered as one single element. So this list, which is defined as list, this list is actually having only a single element, which is a string, and the name of the string is GeeksforGeeks, right? No questions here. This should be pretty much clear, simple, right? Any concerns, guys? Do let me know. This should be very much clear to everybody, right? And then we also check the length. So length, len function, we check the length of my list. So here we're gonna see what is the length here, GeeksforGeeks, because it's a single element. So here the length would be 1, right? But if somebody is asking you to find out the length of this string itself, then it's different. So now in this case, the length of this string is 13 because I have 13 characters in it, right? That is different. But if I talk about the length of my list, that is 1. Now list has only one element, right? But the only element of my list, which is GeeksforGeeks, that has 13 sub elements or 13 sub characters within it, right? So understand the difference between this, guys, okay? So if I ask you to access, for example, say f of my GeeksforGeeks, how can I do that? Right, I told you this. So if I have to access, for example, f this element, so what I can do? So first list. So if I define this list, for example, here. So now what can I do? List will be giving me this element. So list of 0 or list of -1, anything, because it's anyway is having only a single element, right? So I can access my first element. So now this is printing the element. Remember this, guys. If I do this, I'm getting a list. So if I check the type of this, what do I get? List. So list is not an element. I'm not accessing the element here. Now if I do list of 0, now I'll get string. Now this is the element which I want, right? From where I can access f, right? So now this is what I have done, list of 0, which is giving me GeeksforGeeks. Now to access f, I need to find the index number, which is like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'll be giving 5 here. Sorry, my bad. So list of 0. So list of 0 will be this. And now on this, I have to give the number 5. So I'll be getting f. So like index of index, right? So now list of 0 will be giving me this. Now this will be given my first element, parent element. And now on top of this, if I give the index 5, I'll access the element character f. Okay. Likewise, so we can define multi-list also. So we saw that we can have the multi-values list also here. So instead of having single element, I can define it with multiple elements as well. So here we are defining GeeksforGeeks separately as 3 different elements. So here you can see the number of elements here are 3. So what is the length of my list in this case? It's 3. It's not 1, right? So we have 3 different elements now. So it's pretty much simple. We can also create a nested list. We already saw that. So list within a list. So here what I just did. So what I did, I enclosed geeks and for in under a single another sublist. And also I enclose single element geeks under another sub element, which is again a list. Okay. Now I added these 2 sublists as part of my parent list. So now if I check the length of this list, so I'll just do print of this. So I'll just do print of this. I'll be getting 2 here because now I have 2 sub elements of my list. So this entire is my first element and this entire is my second element, right? So now if I have to access, suppose for of this list, so how can I get it, man? So for example, now if I do list, I'll be getting what? So I'll be getting these 2 sub elements. So for is within my first element, so I have to get the first element first. So how can I get that? I can write 0. So I'll get the first element, which is again a list. So I can simply put out of this, I can give 0 or 1 or even -1 should be fine. So I'll get for. Okay. Now within this for, if I want say O for example, so I can still do again an indexing top of this. I can give 1. I'll get O. Right, this is how flexible it is, guys. It's very flexible. Okay, so you can go within the list, you can this can go to like n dimension. You can add as many indexes as you can. Okay, so it's up to you, it's up to how complex the list is, right? So you can just keep on adding the indexes. It's pretty fine, but you have to just understand it's a sequential process. You understood, right? So first I have list. So now if I have to get this element, I have to first give 0. So now just run it, I'll get this, which is again a list. So now in this I have to again give 1. So for example, I'll get for. Now for is a string may I want O as a character, so which is another given as 0.1. So I'll be giving this, so I'll get O. Right, so we can go to as many depth as possible. Okay, cool, guys. Any questions? Utpal, Ali, Akash, any questions, guys? Just a yes or no, or anybody who's part of our chat, just a yes or no. They'll make our point clear. So that's a quick recap for what we did yesterday, guys. So I was a bit fast in this, but again, I hope at this point is clear to everybody. Right, so we did a small question also yesterday, but again, don't worry, guys, we'll go anyway deep in this, right? So don't worry about that. So accessing elements and all, we already did that. Cool. Great. So let's proceed. Meanwhile, people will follow up. So we have another class. Great, Ali. Thank you so much. Utpal, thank you so much. Thank you for confirming. Great. So now tuple. What is tuple? So tuple is a very confused, I would say, data type. So people generally get confused with tuple. What is tuple, why to use tuple, when to use tuple. There are a lot of things. I understand this, right? And it's a very, very confused terminology, and people generally get confused with this. I'll tell you in a very layman term, what is tuple and why do we use tuple, okay? So now again, so simply samjho, list, tuple is nothing but list, okay? Tuple simple list ki tarah kaam karta hai. So whatever we were doing in list, right? Like accessing the element, the way we were accessing the element, all the indexes and all, multiple data types. So all of these things. So I can have a tuple with having multiple elements where each of these elements could be of different data type. All this is possible. So all the definitions of list is pretty much valid in tuple as well. There are two major differences in tuple. The first is how you represent tuple. Okay, so instead of a square bracket, we define using a parenthesis. Okay, that's the first difference. So that's how we define a tuple. The second major difference of tuple is here in list. For example, I'll just show it to you. So now suppose if this is my list, right? So suppose if this is my list, okay, I'll just define it as L, for example. So this is my list, right? So now if I give this L and I have list say 0. So if I list 0 is A, right? So now if I write list of 0 will become say A, B, C, D. Okay. Now if I see L, you can see this. Now this A got modified. Can you see this? Now A, now this list itself got modified. So the first element, which was A, now it has been modified to A, B, C, D. So I have written a code. I just said that, hey, please replace the first element of list with A, B, C, D. So whatever it is, it will just get deleted. And instead of that, I can have the user defined element to be present here. So I can redefine the list. I can mutate the list. I can change the list, right? You can change the list, but this is not valid in tuple. So once tuple is created, you cannot alter the tuple. Okay, so you cannot change it. It cannot be mutated. Okay, it is immutable. So that is my second major difference. Okay, so lists are mutable. You can change the list. You can alter the values of list depending on your requirement, and which, I mean, pretty much valid. So whenever you will be doing some analysis, right, you might be doing some changes in your values. You might be storing, and there are a lot of ways, right? But in tuple, you cannot change it. Again, there is a very, very distinctive usage of tuple as well. So now, for example, you have defined a tuple and you defined a collection element, right? And you don't want this element to be changed entirely during the entire course of your code implementation, right? So So in such cases where you don't want the values to be altered, there are many such scenarios, right? Very critical, some scientific notations, right? Something which is very critical research experiments going on, or something whatever you are working on, where you don't want the values to be altered, right? In any scenario, you don't want them to be altered. You want them to be as it is during the entire course of your code implementation, right? So in that sense, you will be implementing tuple, not list, right? Because list can be altered, right? Maybe you have some 1,000 lines of code, and you somehow somewhere by mistake added the command to alter the list, right? So it will keep on altering the list from their point onwards, right? But in tuple, it won't happen like that. It will give you an error at the same point. It can't alter it, right? So that is the difference. So it depends on the usages. Where you don't want the data to be altered, you will obviously be using tuple, not list. Okay, so tuple are immutable data types, guys. Do not get confused with that. Okay. Any questions? Do put up in the chat. Great. So that's the only two difference, guys. Otherwise, everything is similar to whatever we have discussed so far in list. Okay, everything is as it is. Nothing changes there. Okay, so everything is as it is. Cool. So as I said, just like list, tuple is also an ordered collection of Python objects. It's again a same thing. It's an ordered collection of Python objects. The only difference between tuple and the list is the tuples are immutable. That is, tuples cannot be modified once it is created. So once it is created, it cannot be modified. Okay, and also you know that. So it can be defined as another parenthesis, not the square brackets. Okay. Cool. So let's take some examples. So plain simple examples. So as I said, so for the list, we were defining using the square brackets, right? So but here we can define it using the parenthesis. So if I just call instead of the square brackets, I can call the parenthesis. It's going to initiate an empty tuple. Okay, so you can see this. So we have initiated an empty tuple just by calling this open parenthesis. That's going to be returning me the tuple. I have it here, pretty simple. Now also I can have tuples with multiple with some strings also, right? So multiple strings. So I have created tuple with two elements here, geeks and for, right? So geeks is my first element, for is my second element. So in this case, what can I have? So if I do it like this, so tuple with the use of strings, I have two elements here, right? So I have geeks and for, right? So there are two elements here. Again, if I have this, if I have to access the element, so suppose tuple 1, if I give 0, I can still get the geeks. So all the indexing and all still pretty much valid, guys. It's not anything which is going to be changing. I can still go deep here. I can give 3, so I'll get k here. That's still valid, okay? But the only difference is, for example, tuple is this, right? So now if I want to change tuple of 0 to say A, B, C, D, this won't let me happen because tuple object does not support item assignment. It will not allow you to alter the element. But here, when you were using this in list, it was able to do that, right? You just saw. So here, this particular job is not applicable in tuple. You cannot alter this, right? So this tuple will remain as it is during the entire course of its existence. It won't change. Okay, cool. We have a question here from Rohit. He says in tuple element, okay, I think he deleted the message. Rohit, I mean, I was reading your message, but I think you deleted it, so I could not see that. If you have cleared the question, that's fine. If you have still the doubt, please do let me know. Okay, I'll check that. Cool, great. So this is how we define the tuples. Now we'll see. Okay, so now so here in this case we were seeing the strings, so this is pretty much valid. Utpal has a question, is there any way to modify tuples? No, Utpal. So that's the core definition of tuple. Tuple cannot be modified. There is no other way to modify the tuples, okay? It cannot be modified. That's the basic definition of tuple. It cannot be modified. Not in one way, not in any other way. It cannot be modified. That's the rule, okay? So if you have to modify the collection object, you have to use list, not tuple. Tuple is not for modifications. Clear? Okay, so now again an interesting thing. So here we have the list defined. So we have list defined in the square brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We can create the tuple by using the lists also. Okay, so we can simply create the tuple using the list we have. So we can call the function tuple on top of my list function. Okay, so we are calling the function tuple, tuple, on top of my list one, which is 1 2 3 4 5 6. And now look at this. How does it look like? So this is how now the list, which is 1 2 3 4 5 6, got converted into a tuple. So I can simply call tuple on top of my list, and we have the tuple now. So now this list become immutable. Hey Tanuj, great. Thank you so much. You joined here as well, Beyond Code Beyond. So yeah, so I mean, guys, I do have a Telegram official channel as well. So let me know. So I'll add you, everybody who's a part of our chat. I have forgotten to inform guys who are part of my channel that I'll be live on GeeksforGeeks. So I'll update you guys. Okay, so if you guys want to join the Telegram channel, we can do that. Okay. Thank you, Tanuj, anyway, so for joining us here. Here we're talking about the data analysis in 3 weeks. So we'll be covering some few interesting topics, and then we'll see how it goes from there. Okay, great, guys. So let's proceed. So here, okay. So now you saw that we can create tuple out of list as well, right? So it's pretty simple. So nothing fancy there. Okay. Now here, again, here you can see this. I can create a tuple using on simple geeks. So here you can see this tuple is again anyway function. So I can also call the built-in function tuple. So if I use this tuple tuple, so I'm gonna have geeks. So simple as that. So I'm gonna call the built-in function tuple to initialize my tuple. So you already seen that, right? So pretty simple. So there's no fancy in this. But what happens here? See this, guys. So if I use the tuple inbuilt function, so what it does, it will in fact it'll split this inbuilt split this string into its individual smaller components, right? So if you would have added tuple like this, so for example, if you have initiated and if you have added tuple using a simple parenthesis, right, it would have given this. Look at the difference. I wanted to show you this. So for example, this is my tup. So tup is like, say, I've given, say, geeks. Okay, and now I'm gonna print just a minute. So I'm gonna print tup here, and also I'm gonna create tup1, which is gonna be I'm using the inbuilt function here, tuple. Okay, so look at the difference, guys. I've just used the parenthesis, which is still valid. I can do that. But also, if I use the inbuilt function tuple on top of my element geeks like this, look at the difference. Okay, so print tup1. Now look at the difference. So first one is gonna print me the element tuple. So I'll be having this element geeks. It's pretty simple in that. It's like all defined tuple which I have. But if I use the inbuilt function tuple, it's going to be splitting it into its individual smaller component, which is GEEKS as individual 5 elements. Did you notice the difference, guys? Is this clear? Okay. So that's how. So you can define the tuple in both the ways, depending on your objective, depending on the way you want the data to be, right? In either ways, it's pretty much fine. So you can use it likewise. Okay. Okay, so we can have also nested tuples. So nested tuples, you know, so we can have multiple tuples within. So for example, you can see this. I'm defining an initial tuple 1, which is 0, 1, 2, 3, my numeric elements. I'm defining my tuple 2, which is having 2 more elements, Python and geeks. Okay. And now I am defining tuple 3, right? So which is actually my nested tuple of tuple 1 and tuple 2, right? So here my tuple 1, which is this, and tuple 2 is this, right? So I can simply create another nested tuple. Nested means tuple within tuple, or nested list means list within list, right? So that's the definition of nested. Okay. So I can have this tuples created here on a nested query as well. So if I do a print of tuple 3, I'll be getting the nested part. So now if I ask you quickly, guys, a question to you, if I do a length of tuple 3, can somebody tell me what will be the answer here, guys, quickly? If I do if I need to find out the length of my tuple 3, what is the length here? What will be the output if I print length of tuple 3 here, guys? Quickly. This is a simple question, guys. It's pretty simple. I think you should be trying this. I have two tuples here, tuple 1 and tuple 2. I'm gonna add them together in a same tuple. So what would be the element here? So what is the length of my tuple? So Ali says 5. Utpal says 2. So we have two different answers. Definitely someone is wrong. So we'll see that. And okay, Ali now is also saying 2. Okay, clear. So now we have only single answer. Utpal also says 2 and Ali also says 2. Any other answers apart from this, guys? Rohit also says 2. Anyone is having any other answer, guys? Any other answer from anyone? Okay, so we have another 2 here. Great, guys. So I hope now I'm making sense to everybody, right? Pretty simple. So here, don't get confused by the sub elements. So look at the parent element here. So in this tuple 3, I only have two elements, tuple 1 and tuple 2. That's it. So here, now by seeing this, don't get confused. So I have a single comma here. So this gonna be my first element. This entire thing is my first element. And this entire thing is my second element. Okay. So the length of this tuple 3 is 2, not 5 or whatever. Okay. The length of my tuple 3 is 2. Okay. Clear? Now again, the accessing remains pretty much valid here. So we can still access whatever we want. So we can access this particular element. So I can, if I want to access Python, I can do that. Or if I want to access Geek, I can still do that. If I want to access 2, I can still do that. So a question to you guys quickly. How can I access Python from above tuple 3? Quickly. Give me the command, guys. Quickly give me the command. How will you access? So I want to print Python on my command prompt here. So what will be the code, guys? How can I get Python from this tuple 3? So I'll print the tuple 3 also for you. So from this tuple 3, you have to tell me how you will print only Python out of it. Quickly, guys. Just take a minute and quickly tell me the answer. So this is again simple, guys. If you give me this, I'll be really happy because this is where this is a very basic concept of lesson tuples. And if you trust me, this is not that easy. If you are able to understand this, you should be really proud about yourself. In just a day, you are able to understand this basic concepts. And trust me, these are the basics of your data analysis, right? Nobody will tell you this, but nobody will give weightage to this. This is very, very important. And sometimes I generally feel that people get confused with this, right? And this is very core, very important basics. Guys, quickly, how will you access Python out of this tuple 3? Rohit, Ali, Utpal, KR, Tanuj. Tuple of 1 of 0. Okay, so we have one response. Okay, Akash also says 1 of 0. Great, guys, great. So anybody is having any other answer? Cool. Thank you so much, guys. Pretty simple again, right? So it's like tuple. So out of tuple, so in this tuple 3, I have, so this is my first element and this is my second element. So how can I access the second element? By either giving 1 or I can also give -1 because this is my last element also, right? So this is pretty much valid. Okay. So I have tuple of -1, right? Rohit says tuple of 1 and 1. No, Rohit. So 1 is fine. I can give -1 or even say don't get even 1 is fine, or -1 is also fine because it's the last element. But now inside this, my Python becomes my first element now. Python is not the second element, right? So Python has become my first element. To define the first element, we give 0. So forward indexing always starts with 0, right? Utpal, Rohit, guys, do not get confused. So forward indexing always starts with 0. Right? So it's not 1, it's 0. So in this, I have to give 0. So if I give 0, now I'll give Python. Clear? Rohit, Utpal? And so forward indexing always starts from 0 and backward indexing always starts from -1. This is again a rule. Do not forget with this, guys. So also again, if I have to access this, so now look at this parent tuple, right? So in this parent tuple, I have two elements, right? My first element and the second element. Second element, fortunately, is also my last element, right? So I can also give -1 here, still valid, okay? So -1 from the backward side first element. So this is my backward side first element. This entire thing still valid. I can still do that. Or also, if I go within this, for example, now if I have to write this in the backward order, so now this geek become my -1 and Python become my -2. So I can also write -1 comma -2. This is also valid. I can still get Python in this. Okay, still pretty much valid. So my indexing is pretty much valid both forward and the backward ways. Okay, so there is no mandate rule that you have to write things only in the forward or only in the backward way. So, and even you can have the mix match also. We were doing this, right? So we can have this one also. I mean, sorry, it should not be 1, it should be 0. So it's still valid. So I can have one forward, one backward, or both backward, both forward. Anything is fine. Okay, so mix match is also pretty much okay. So they both goes hand in hand. So do not get confused by this. Okay. So simple, eh? So I have written few basic examples. So this is, for example, I've showed you. So I have my tuple here. So given as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now if I have to access the first element, I'll be giving 0, right? As simple as that. So I have my first element of tuple, which is like 1. How did I get it? So I just gave tuple and index it with 0. So that indexing 0 is going to give me the first element. So that's how I'll be having my first element here, right? Cool. So now again, how can I access the last element? Again, the same indexing logic, guys. So -1. So -1 gonna be giving me the last element of my tuple, right? So in this case, I'll be having -1. So by giving -1, I'll be having what? This is gonna give me 5, right? So if I do it like this, if I do last element of my tuple, that's gonna give me 5, right? So I'll be having 5 here. So if I do like this, I'll get the last element as 5. Clear? Likewise, I can also access any other element. So apart from the first and the last, by just giving the indexes, for example, I can access the third element of the tuple by this. What is my third element? So 1, 2, 3, right? So I can access 3 by both the ways, by either going the forward direction or giving the backward direction. So if I have to go with the backward direction, like -1, -2, and -3. So I can give -3 here. That's going to give me 3, right? Or in the forward direction, I can still get the same thing by doing what? So I can also do print of tuple, tuple 1 and tuple 1. If I do it from forward indexing, so 1 becomes 0, 2 becomes 1, 3 becomes 2, right? So this is my second index, value 2, right? If I do it like this, I'll still get 3, pretty much valid. Okay. सिंपल चीजें हैं गाइस, मैं बार बार रिपीट इसलिए कर रहा हूं बिकॉज ये यही सिंपल चीजें बाद में बहुत ट्रबल करती हैं, है ना? जब वो क्लियर नहीं होता है ना, तो फिर आपको कोड लिखने में हमेशा प्रॉब्लम रहेगी, हमेशा, जब ये बेसिक चीजें क्लियर नहीं रहेंगी. But again, do not get confused, guys. We'll be doing many problems in this, right? So I have also prepared a list of problems for us. Okay, so do not worry about that. So I have prepared the list of problems. So we'll be definitely taking all of those. Okay. Cool. So now another data type, so Boolean. So next, so apart from sequential, now we have Boolean. है ना? Sequential में, guys, do not get confused. Definitely we'll be covering a lot of other problems. So we'll go deep one by one in all of these individual subtopics. We'll go that. So I have my I have the lectures prepared for them as well. So we'll go them. So but at least just let's try to get familiarized with other available data sets as well. So other data types as well. Okay. So in the Boolean, what is a Boolean? So true or false, simply true or false. So non-Boolean objects can be evaluated in Boolean context as well, determined to be true or false. For example, suppose I can say it like this. So like for example, 5 is equal to 5. This is true, right? So 5 is equal to 5. This is pretty much, oh my God, just a minute. I think I just, okay. Right, so 5 is equal to 5. This is true, right? This is pretty much valid. So if I do it like this, no, 5 is equal to 5. So I'll get is like true, right? This is pretty much valid. So if I give 5 is equal to 6, this is false. This is not true. This is incorrect, right? So this is not correct. But what if I give 5 is less than 6? This is still valid. This is true. So it'll give me true. So true and false is basically giving me a state of my current problem, current thing, which I'm trying to, state of my evaluation, right? Whether it is true or false. So here, Boolean means true or false. Okay. So this is again one of the very important data types available in Python. So we're gonna use this in many contexts. Okay. You might think that this is a very simple true and false thing, but this is really valid for multiple of such conditions. So for example, you have to implement some if-else condition, right? So for example, you can say that if if A is less than B, then you're gonna say that C is equal to C plus 5, and then if this is not true, then else you're gonna say C is equal to C minus 5, for example, if this is your code logic, for example, C. Okay, so now what are you doing? You're first evaluating A is less than B. So if A is less than B, this is giving you what? This is the same thing, right? This is giving you either true or giving you true or false, right? This is what it is doing. So first it is evaluating true or false. So in if, it is actually checking the Boolean statement, right? Internally it is checking the Boolean statement. So if this condition which I'm providing in my code, if this is true, it'll first evaluate it'll do the true statement ka function. So true, agar ye true hai, it'll do this, C is equal to C plus 5. If in the situation, if the Boolean result is false, then will be going to the else part. It'll be evaluating this, not this. Okay. So here it will either be doing C plus 5 or C minus 5, depending on the condition it is checking, right? So what condition it is getting checked here? The Boolean condition, true and false, right? The same thing which I just did. So again, these things might seem very small to you when you are looking at it from the code perspective, but again, these becomes really big when you start implementing it, right? That is the reason why I have prepared a lot of questions for you guys. Well, once I finish this basic theoretical part, right, so we'll jump into the problem solving. And people who have been following me for other channels as well, so we have been solving many problems, right? So we have very standard website problems from lead code. So I'll be also starting another stream here with the lead code problems. So we'll be going with the lead code. So we have been doing in another channel as well, but here in Geeks4Geeks also we'll be solving lead code problems, but that is on a very advanced stage, right? So first we'll try to finish up the points from here, and then we'll cover the basics, and then we'll start with the core problem solving. Okay, cool guys. Great, so that's how it is, a simple Boolean, true and false. So here you can say that even the non-Boolean objects can still be evaluated in the Boolean context. That's what we did here, right? So A is less than B. So it's a non-Boolean function which I'm trying to evaluate. So I can evaluate anything and then we can check for the condition. So then we check for the output we are getting from the evaluation, whether it is true or false, right? And here it is denoted by a class bool. Okay, so a class is so if I check, so for example, if I do like this, and if I check the type of this, I'll get the type as bool. Okay, so I can just do a print. So you'll see a more finer result. So if I do a print of this, you'll see the class is Boolean. Okay, so the class here is bool. Okay, so earlier we saw the classes as int, we saw the class as float, we saw the class as complex, we saw the class as list, tuple, string, str, right? And now here the class is bool. Okay, so now here true and false also can be equally given as it is very important that true and false here, it is defined as capital T and capital F. This is very important, guys. So always remember, T is not small, F is not small. If you give T as small and F as small, it won't be identified in Python as an element. For example, with this, so if I write this TRUE, can you see this? It has turned green. This is an inbuilt element, so I can run this. True is true, right? But if I write T, it'll give me an error because the small t, true is not defined, right? But if I just do capital T, it'll identify this as an inbuilt statement. So this is an inbuilt defined already hold keyword. Okay. Great. So that's the basic intro to your Boolean. So let's see some examples here. So if I do a print of type of true or print type of false, we already saw that. So the type of these true and false are nothing but my bool. So it's from the class bool, right? And also we can evaluate things. So if we can evaluate like 5 is equal to 4 or 5 is equal to 5, and not only this, we can also evaluate less than, greater than, equal to, divide, many things, like even the non Boolean statements also can be verified here, right? Simple as that. So if I do print 5 is equal to 4, here 5 4 के बराबर कैसे हो सकता है? 5 is not 4, 5 is 5, 4 is 4, right? So 5 is not equal to 4. This is incorrect. This is false. So if I do it like this, I'll get false as my element, right? And now I can obviously use this condition to be part of my any code further logic. So I can use it under my while. I can use under any other looping. So I can use it under if. So whatever conditioning we're trying to promote, right? So we can obviously do that. So 5 is equal to 4 and 5 is equal to something like that. So we have now 5 is equal to 5 as well. So which is pretty much true. So if I do that, so I'll get true here, right? So this is how it is. Cool, simple. Okay. Any questions, guys? Any questions? Please do let me know. Any questions, guys? I'm all ears. If anybody is having any concerns, just do let me know. Okay, great. So let's start. Then let's proceed with the next one. Next one, set. Set क्या है? ठीक है? Set again, it's a very interesting one. So set is an unordered collection of data, a data type that is iterable, mutable, and has no duplicate elements. Okay, so three things. Remember, guys, this is iterable, so we can iterate over the elements of set. This is mutable, just like list. I can mutate the set element, so I can I can change the elements like the way we were doing in list. This is not like tuple. And also important thing, this has no duplicate elements. So for example, what do I mean by this? So for example, I'm creating a list 1 here, which is like 1 comma 1 comma 1 comma 2, right? So and then if I print list 1, I'll be getting 1 comma 1 comma 1 comma 2. So it is fine to have 1 repeated n number of times. Likewise, any element repeated n number of times. And this, all the elements will be treated as individual such elements, right? So I'll be having 1 is repeated thrice. So still index 0 is 1, index 1 is 1, index 2 is also 1, and index 3 is 2. That is still valid. It's fine. There's no problem in that, right? But if I do it like this, if I do say not this, right? So if I define set 1 as set 1 comma 1 comma 1 comma 2, and if I print set 1, just a minute, open. I think I just made some mistake here in this. Just a minute. Okay, my bad. Just define it like this. Right. So now can you see this? Here I have 1 comma 1 comma 1, and I have 2 here, which is part of my list. Now can you see this? Now this entire part of my 1, which is actually duplicates, is now being converted into my unique variable, which is 1 here, right? Pretty simple, guys, right? So here we cannot have any duplicate values. Let's quickly look at this, how we can initiate the set. This is again important data type when you use in some of the other objective, right? So if you don't want to, if you want only the unique elements out of your list, so that's where we're going to be using this. So let's look at this, how we can identify. So here the order of the element in the set is undefined, though it may consist of various elements, and also sets can be created by using an inbuilt set function. So we have to call the set as a keyword. So set function is important. So for any function we're going to use a parenthesis. So after set we're going to have the parenthesis here, and we can use it by placing the sequence inside the curly braces separated by commas. Okay, something which is very important. So now we can define this. So for example, I can initiate an empty set. This is pretty simple. So I have defined using the set function here. So set, if I do set, I can do initialize the empty set now like this. I can also initialize the set with a string. So I have GeeksforGeeks defined here. So if I do it like this, I can still get, so here again, if I use this set, I'll still get the individual unique elements, so which are like this. Say now this G got G and G got replaced by a single G here, and also the E got replaced by a single E likewise. So all the unique sub characters of my individual element, which is being part of my question statement here, will be defined under my set. So set is a ordered collection of my element where I'll be having only the elements which are unique, which is not repeating, where the duplicates are removed from my collections. Okay, so that is what the definition of set is. I can also define set using a list. That is also pretty much fine. So if I use set here like this, where we have the multiple elements, I can still do it. So I have geeks, for, and geeks. So I don't want this individual characters to be considered as one single element. So I want them to be considered as individual sub elements. So I can define it over the list. So so I can have geeks, for, geeks. So here geeks is again repeated multiple times. So 2 times here. So only I'll get as output as one single geek, right? So geeks is what I'll be getting here. Cool guys, simple. I can also create set with multiple data types, so like the way we were doing it for list. So right, you remember in the list also we were having multiple data types. So I can do it with set also, pretty much valid. So I have 1, 2. I have also defined geeks here, and if it's a string, then I have 4, then I have 4, then I have 6, then I have geeks. So like is a mix of my numbers and the strings. So if I do that, I still perform the action individually for my numbers and the strings. So for example, if I just replace this 4 with 2, so now you can see this, I only will get 1, 2, and also I only will get only 1 geeks. Okay, so it will be valid for any of your data types. So I can do it even for a float, I can do it for complex number, I can do it for string, I can do it for even a sublist within this. So set can be further defined as having any dimensional sub data types. Okay, that's pretty much valid. So I can have any data type available within my set. I can define it using the lists. Okay, mix match is also pretty much valid. Cool. Now, how are you going to access elements in the sets? Okay, how are you going to access the elements is pretty simple. So as I said, here indexing does not work. So it's an unordered, the unordered part of my item. So we have no indexes here. So the indexes are not defined. Okay. So how we can get the elements of list? So get the elements of set. So we have to iterate it over a loop. So we can either use a for loop or any loop, whatever you want, external loop. So we have to iterate. It is an iterable element. Okay. So to get an element, we have to run it over a loop to find the element of my list. Okay. So for example, I have this element set 1. So initial set. So if you can see this, so I only have geeks and for. So now on this set 1, if I have to access the element, so I have to, like for example, if I have to access geeks, for example, right? So how can I get that? So the elements of my set, I have to run it over my loop. So for I in set 1, I'll be printing I. Okay, so like this. So I'll be getting geeks, and so if I remove this end for example, so I'll be getting geeks and for. Again, I can have so if I is equal to say geeks, then you can separate. Okay, so that's fine. I'm gonna print I here. I can do that. Okay, so I can only access geeks like this, for example, right? So it's all towards understanding how you're gonna access the element. Okay, so I have to access it over a loop, right? So loop means it's an iterable element. Here the orders are not given. Orders means my indexes are not given. Okay, so for that I have to run it over a loop to find the elements of my list. Okay, cool, great. Also, I can do it like I can check if a particular element is available within the set. So I can simply write using the in statement. So in is like, it's just like an English in. Okay, so like geeks in set 1. So if geeks is present in set 1, it's going to return the condition which is true, right? So it's like again an evaluation strategy, right? It's like a Boolean evaluation, right? So geeks is part of my set 1. So I'm asking a question here. So is geek part of my set 1? So yes, you know that in set 1 we have geeks, right? So this is to evaluate this, the answer would be true here. Okay, cool, simple. So now dictionary. So dictionary में हम क्या करते हैं? So another data type here. So dictionary is again an unordered collection, so it cannot be accessed using more towards your indexes. So there's no indexes here. So here we have the mappers. Okay, so in dictionary, it's again a very important data type. So we have the mappers here. It holds key and the value pair. So key and value basically क्या है आपका? Key value is provided in the dictionary to make it more optimized, and key and value is separated by colons, and also multiple key value such pairs can be separated by using commas. Okay, so we saw that. तो डिक्शनरी क्या है? डिक्शनरी को मैं सिंपल डिफाइन करूं तो वो कर्ली ब्रेसेस से डिफाइन होता है. ओके, सो लाइक वाइज लिस्ट इज फॉर स्क्वायर ब्रैकेट्स, tuple is for parentheses, like why dictionary is for curly braces. Okay, so curly braces से हम डिक्शनरी को इनिशिएट करते हैं. So we have the curly braces there. Here you can see this. Now I have three key value pairs. Okay, so I'm defining dictionary. So can you see this? A single key value pair is separated using a colon, and multiple such key value pairs are separated using commas. Okay, so I have three such key value pairs in this. So this is my first key value pair, this is my second key value pair, and this is my third key value pair. Okay. Ali has a question here. So can you repeat how to call element in set, please? Yes, absolutely I can. In fact, let me do one thing. So let's take dictionary tomorrow. So we are anyway pretty much towards the closure of our time. So let's take dictionary tomorrow. Let's not jump into things. I believe dictionary is important. So let's take it tomorrow. Rather, I'll take Ali's question. I'll try to explain how we're going to access the set elements. Okay, that is something which is more important. Okay, so now accessing the elements is, yeah, okay, Ali. So it's with the loop. Okay, right. So now for loop क्या होता है? So first of all for loop समझते हैं. So हम set के elements को directly index नहीं कर सकते. For example set 1 जो आपने देखा था वो for and geeks है, right? So set 1 में अगर आप 0 करोगे तो error आ जाएगा because set 1 में index नहीं होता. मतलब इसका क्या है? So indexes मतलब by default उसमें कुछ ordering नहीं है. जब तक अगर ऑर्डरिंग नहीं है तो कोई इंडेक्स नहीं है, एंड इफ देयर इज नो इंडेक्सेस आई कैन नॉट एक्सेस इट यूजिंग इंडेक्स, राइट? So that is the reason why I cannot access the element of set using the plain simple looping, plain simple indexing logic. उसको हमें loop के थ्रू लेना पड़ेगा. Loop मतलब I have to iterate the elements of my set. So for example suppose list भी है मेरे पास. Suppose मैं list मैं looping पहले समझाता हूँ. So list 1 है मेरे पास. Suppose 1 2 3 4 5, ठीक है. अब इस लिस्ट पे भी अगर लूप करूंगा for I in list 1, and if I simply do print I, okay, I'll still get the elements 1 2 3 4 and 5. So इसमें क्या है? It is printing me all the elements one by one. So it is iterating over my list, है ना? This is what loop does. Likewise, I can run the same thing on set also. Okay, so for example, I have this set here. So for accessing the elements, I can do for set. For I in set 1, I can simply do print I. If I do it like this, I'll get geeks and for as my elements. Okay. Now what I want. So suppose if I only want if I want geeks to be printed, right? So I can do that. So I can do another condition on top of this. I can simply write if I want geeks, for example. So I can do if my I is equal to say geeks, then you're gonna say brick. So do not run the loop again. So it's gonna be coming out of my loop, and then again I'll be printing here. I'll be printing I. So I can do that. So it'll only print geeks for me. So I'm defining a condition. So do not go beyond geeks. Only print geeks for me. So as soon as you find geeks, just stop it there and print the element for me. This is what I'm doing. So this is how you're gonna access the element in set. Okay. So you cannot actually just do the indexing and find the elements. So you have to go it through the looping of my things. Clear, Ali? Is the point clear? Great. Okay, so I think let's stop it for today, guys. So maybe I can take dictionary tomorrow. So we'll take dictionary for tomorrow, and then we'll try to take things from there. Okay, so I'll rather go a bit deep in dictionary, and then we'll see how we can take it from there. Okay, so we'll start from dictionary tomorrow, and then we'll try to take something else, and then we'll see how we're gonna utilize our time. Okay, great. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's see each other tomorrow, same time, 10 p.m. And so that's what we'll be doing tomorrow as well. Great, guys. Okay, see you tomorrow. Bye bye. Thank you so much for joining. Same time, 10 p.m.